like to welcome you all this evening to the February 25th Mayor and Council meeting. And we would like to start our meeting off with the Pledge of Allegiance. And I'd like to ask the Santos girls soccer team to lead us in the pledge. Thank you, ladies. And now I'd like you to come up to the microphone and introduce yourselves and anything in particular that we need to know about you. We would enjoy hearing.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. On behalf of Santos staff, I'm one of the coaches for this team, and I also coached a U18 girls team as well. We wanted to thank you guys for having them come in here and recognizing their accomplishments. They finished 10-0-1. Gave up 4 goals this year and scored, I believe, 39. It's the first team in over 22 years. They qualified for regionals in Baton Rouge, Louisiana this summer from June 20th to the 27th. And the girls are going to come up and introduce themselves and tell you their position. But thanks again. Appreciate it.
Let's give these ladies a hand. Awesome. Awesome.
Thank you. I'm Joelle Miller, and I go by JoJo, and I play right back.
I'm Siona Reyna, and I play holding mid. I'm Kelsey Crozier, and I play holding mid.
I'm Olivia Gowan, and I play left back.
I'm Lauren Connolly, and I play left midfield.
I'm Molly Henderson, and I play forward.
I'm Reagan Ludnick, and I play midfielder.
I'm Laura Kennedy, and I play right mid.
I'm Teller Gucky, and I play center back.
I'm Laurel Edge, and I play holding mid.
I'm Taylor Keller, and I play attacking mid.
I'm Rachel Williamson, and I play center back.
I'm Ella Parker, and I play goalie.
Let's give these ladies another hand, please. This is a fantastic achievement. Now, we would be honored if we could have our picture taken with you all. If you would be so kind, come right up here in front of the dais, and we'll join you there. Well, we would love to have you stay for the meeting. You're more than welcome to leave. I don't know that you found it that exciting. Yeah.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is a consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Motion by Councilmember Wilsey. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Grower. All those in favor, please raise your hands. And it passes unanimously. We've got another really great story tonight. We've got the presentation of the Roswell High School Band Booster Association regarding a community fundraising event for the students of Roswell High School Band. Would you all come forward?
Well, good evening, Mayor, Council. My name is Michael Del Chero. I'm co-president for the Roswell High School Band Boosters. I've been here before, and I put a little bug in your ear on open mic night back in November that will be here because we have ourselves our annual March Community Service Day coming up on March the 16th. So we want to spend just a few moments to share a few remarks about the band, about the Community Service Day, and we actually got a couple nice little things to share with you a bit later about what we did last year, and also a couple students to remark. So let me hand it over to our band director, Mr. Michael Moon.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you again for having us. I'm the director of bands at Roswell High School. Our program covers around 8 different activities within the band program. We have some students here who are going to talk about that. We have about 170 students across those 8 programs that represent our band program. We have winter guard, indoor drumline, 3 concert bands, a jazz band, several chamber ensembles, which is a lot to handle throughout one year, and it's very gracious that we've had this fundraiser help us raise the funds to support all these great children and what they do in our arts program. So we're going to let Mr. Herring talk a little bit about that.
Hello, Mayor and Council. My name is Mark Herring, 8 Meeting Street in Roswell. I've been here since 2012, and we love the community and especially Roswell High School. My oldest graduated from Roswell High School last year and is at Georgia Tech now, and Nathan is my 16-year-old. He's a junior. And the Roswell High School Band March fundraiser is a fundraiser I borrowed from a church I used to work at in Chicago, where we do a one-day community service day in the community when the students raise funds to support that effort. We found in this youth ministry in Chicago that people were much more willing to donate if their donation went to something that helped the community. And we found that to be true here too. Instead of getting a candle or popcorn or whatever tchotchke the organization is trying to sell to make money, they would much rather give money to an organization or a charitable event that's beautifying the community. And last year we did it for the first time, and it had just an amazing success. Michael will tell you more about that in a minute of all the great success that we had, but we thank you for your support in this. And we're looking forward to another great turnout this year with lots of people donating and the kids having just as much fun out in the community, beautifying our rivers and parks and helping out at Saturday school, some of the other work sites that we have around Roswell. So thank you for your time.
All right. Great. Okay, that worked. So I want to share what we did last year. This is really good stuff. Last year we raised $25,000. It was the biggest fundraiser for the history of Roswell High School Band. It was held on March 17th. We covered 11 locations. Over 600 service hours actually were invested back into Roswell that particular day. We covered locations like Smith House, trails up at Vickery Creek, Chattahoochee River, Mimosa Elementary School, the Roswell Rec, and we had actually we took on a pretty aggressive storm drain project. So on the overhead, I just want to share that if our site coordinator, Chuck Douglas, at Smith House talked about how it was just really complimentary what we did. And for years, he was kind of hoping like to get this trail done. So Nate here will show you that they said they never saw anything like it. It's almost like the equivalent of maybe even an Eagle Scout project. Next slide. We did some trails up at Vickery Creek with the National Park Service. Dave Thomas was also just deeply pleased. And these kids got a real workout. I think we have a couple of pictures here, Nate. Got this one here. So that was Vickery Creek. So I know we had that new steps put up. I think Councilman Judy talked about that. Up over there, we got that all cleared out. Next slide. the storm drains. So we actually got an award, next slide, from Keep Roswell Beautiful, because we put those medallions, those blue and green medallions in all the storm drains. So to wrap it up, we have a couple of students who talked about their experience from March last year.
Hey, my name is Carla Dalchero. I'm in 10th grade at Roswell. I played trumpet in the band and I marched the mellophone. Last year for the fundraiser, I went to the Chattahoochee River and we cleaned up probably over a mile, and we went back and picked it all up, made sure we have everything. Went to a park and did the same thing. It was a lot of fun and got close to everyone, and I'm definitely looking forward to it this year.
Hi, I'm Nathan Herring. I'm a junior, and I march trombone, and I played in concert band. I went to Mimosa Elementary to help teach the kids there, and that was really fun. I enjoyed teaching them and being with friends in the band there. And I think I'm looking forward to do it again, and I think the school really appreciated it.
So to wrap it up, you'll see kids out there on the street. We'll be on social media. Looking forward to a great experience serving back to Roswell on March the 16th. Thank you all.
Let's have a round of applause for these gentlemen. You have a great cause, and I hope that you'll have a lot of contributions. And, excuse me, thank you so much for giving back to our community. Now, would you all grace us with a picture as well? We would love to have one with you.
Okay.
And we have another feel-good story tonight that's just wonderful, and we're looking forward to hearing from you all. It's a presentation of a check to the City of Roswell from the Roswell Ramblers and the Friends of Roswell Parks to cover the costs of the whirlpool at the Adult Aquatic Center in the amount of $29,500. It's awesome.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Before I turn it over to the Ramblers and also to our Parks Foundation, I just want to say that as a department, we have a number of booster clubs who support a variety of activities that we have throughout the entire city. And the presentation tonight is no exception to that. And just from the department side, we are so grateful for our boosters, and we're excited to be able to partner with them to present this check tonight. So I'll turn it over to Ms. Prescott, I think, first. Come on up.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. And on behalf of the Roswell Ramblers Club, we will present to the City of Roswell this check in the amount of $29,500 to complete our commitment to partner with the city for the whirlpool. Our commitment was $75,000, and between 2015 and 2017, we presented like $46,200. So this brings us to the end of our commitment, and we're proud of it. We have, in the 2.5 years that we've been open, we serve every day. We have swimmers who are there at 7 o'clock in the morning for their daily swim. We have a lot of swimmers who come early before they go to work. But in addition, we have, we serve 2 polio survivors who come in for therapy. We have a lady who survived a lightning strike, and she, through her therapy at the center, she's able to stay out of a wheelchair. We have a lady who could not even enter the pool on the ramp without help, and she now spends 2 to 3 hours twice a week walking the length of the pool. And it's her dedication to her therapy on her own, but also I feel, the contribution that our pool has made, the difference it's made in her life. We have people who are with arthritis, multiple sclerosis, Parkinson's disease, stroke survivors, and members who are rehabilitating joint replacements that are with us daily. In addition, we have special needs groups from children to adults who come for therapy. They come to with their therapists to be in the pool because of the benefits of the aquatic therapy for them. And we are so grateful that this has become a reality for the citizens of Roswell. And we thank the Friends of Roswell Park for their donation. And the money from this came from people who made donations on behalf of the Aquatic Center to Friends of Roswell also. So there was a wide variety of fundraising that went on to meet this obligation, and we're grateful. And thank you.
I'll hold that one.
Thank you. Betty pretty much covered everything, but on behalf of the Friends of Roswell, we are excited to be able to work on opportunities like this and be the caretaker for these funds. It's not the most exciting way to phrase it, but that's what we were, and we look forward to many more opportunities in the future for recreational events. So thank you. Thank you all for everything that you do. Mr. Leatherman, did you have anything else to add?
Just 2 other people behind me, and just so that they don't go unmentioned, we've got a great staff that work down not only at our adult rec center, but also at our pool. And Mary Greenfield and Mary Rummel behind me spend a tremendous amount of time and effort serving our community, and it's a tremendous thank to them, not only for our booster clubs, but also our wonderful staff down there. So thank you both.
Thank you. We do appreciate it. And will you all take a picture with us? Thank you.
Let them get in here. Oh.
You should be doing this. Yeah. Smash. Yeah. The elbow in the way. Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is the Community Development Department. Councilmember Michael Palermo.
Thank you, Mayor.
I do want to caution you that we won't be taking pictures.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Henry. Item number 4, approval of a text amendment to the Unified Development Code regarding Section 1.1.6, prior approval conditions. This is the first reading.
Good evening. Mr. Davidson.
Good evening.
We'll hear from Mr. Davidson. Thank you.
Thank you. This is an ordinance to amend the Unified Development Code by modifying Section 1.1.6 prior approval conditions. Now therefore, the Mayor and Council of the City of Roswell, Georgia, pursuant to their authority, do hereby amend the Unified Development Code text of which is incorporated herein by reference, and if approved, this will be the first reading.
So yes, what we've looked at is when the Unified Development Code was adopted, we brought all the conditions forward from 1971 and all the Fulton County conditions forward. What we are looking at here is, due to new technology, we've had numerous calls and requests from people who've had conditions placed on their properties related to high-pressure sodium lighting, mercury vapor lighting that was done in the 80s and the 90s. And we are looking to just remove, the only thing we would remove would be for anyone who had a lighting condition placed on it, to allow them to use the new technology with their developments. An example that we had, I know for sure, was the Kroger down on Marietta Highway had a zoning condition placed on it for their lighting. And they called probably about 4 or 5 years ago and requested and asked if they could do it. And we said, well, the only route you have is to go to the mayor and city council to update all your lighting. So what we were looking for is to just allow lighting conditions to be removed from that. Currently in the code, we still have hours of operation, number of dwelling units, site plans, buffers. We're not looking to remove any of those conditions or any of the other conditions placed on the items, just the lighting conditions. And the Planning Commission recommended approval of lighting only.
Thank you, Ms. Steibel. Does council have any questions? Seeing no hands up, is there anyone in the public that would like to speak? Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Councilmember Palermo. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Wilsey. All those in favor, please raise your hands. And it passes unanimously.
Item number 5, approval of the text amendment to the Unified Development Code regarding section 2.2.19, residential garage parking, letter B, detached house and attached house. This is the first reading.
Mr. Davidson.
Thank you. This is an ordinance to amend the Unified Development Code by modifying section 2.2.19, residential garage parking. Now therefore, the mayor and council of the city of Roswell, Georgia, pursuant to their authority, do hereby amend the Unified Development Code, the text of which is incorporated herein by reference, and if approved, this would be the first reading.
Yes, so to explain that, originally when we put it together, we had indicated letter B in the code. So under this section, you have applicability and you have detached house and attached house. During the Planning Commission meeting, they felt that this statement, which is to indicate that for any house in a new development approved after the adoption of the UDC. So they wanted it placed in Article A instead of B. So what this is that any development that has been approved after the adoption of the UDC would need to follow the residential garage standards. So what we've had over the years is people in homes that were built in the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, and the early 2000s might be updating their garages. However, based on the placement of their homes, they might not be able to meet the new standards where it needs to be set back a certain distance, or it might have to be semi-flush based or a side entry because of the way they've already been built. However, with new developments, anything that's been approved after the adoption, we feel that those need to meet the requirements, so they would stay in there. So we would place the statement in here to specifically state that any development after the adoption of the UDC, to allow the homeowners who've had homes built prior to this to not try to have to redesign their entire house in order to update their garage if they choose to do so. And as the Planning Commission stated, they felt it should go in letter A instead of letter B because the statement, the section under letter B gives all the examples. So they felt it was not the right place for that section. So they recommended approval with placing it under the letter A applicability section. Any questions?
Thank you, Ms. Steibel. Any questions from council? Yes, Councilmember Tizer.
Thank you, Mayor. Does staff agree with Planning Commission's recommendation?
Yes.
Additional questions from council? Seeing no hands up, is there anyone in the public that would like to speak? Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve with Planning Commission's update.
Motion by Councilmember Palermo. Do I have a second? Second. Second by Councilmember Judy. All those in favor, please raise your hands. And it passes unanimously.
Item number 6, approval of a text amendment to the Unified Development Code regarding Section 10.2.5, buffer installation. This is the first reading.
Mr. Davidson.
Thank you. This is an ordinance to amend the Unified Development Code by modifying Section 10.2.5, buffer installation. Now therefore, the mayor and council of the city of Roswell, Georgia, pursuant to their authority, do hereby amend the Unified Development Code, Section 10.2.5, buffer installation requirements, letter A, location number 4, to add the following language, the text of which is incorporated herein by reference and approved. This would be the first reading.
Yes, so this language states, in no case can a building be placed less than 10 feet from the interior edge of the buffer. What we're looking to do here is to place this in Article 10. We currently have it in Articles 3 and 4, 5, and 6 in our buffer setbacks and everything. However, we don't have it in Article 10 where the buffer installation section is. So we felt that if we added this exact same statement, which is the statement we have in all the other articles, that would make it coincide, people would be able to find it easier. You wouldn't have to just look for it in Articles 3, 4, 5, and 6. But if you're actually looking for the buffer regulation section, you would find that statement also in that area. And Planning Commission and staff both recommend approval of this addition.
Thank you, Ms. Steibel. Do we have any questions? Yes, Councilmember Judy.
This is already the practice we use. This is just clarifying it, correct?
Yes, it's just adding it to this section.
Additional questions from council? Is there anyone in the public that would like to come forward and speak? Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Councilmember Palermo. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Grower. All those in favor, please raise your hands. And it passes unanimously.
Item number 7, approval of a text amendment to the Unified Development Code to add Section 13.7.16 regarding a variation/undue hardship in the Historic District. This is the first reading.
Mr. Davidson.
Thank you. This is an ordinance to amend the Unified Development Code by amending Section 13.7, Historic Review. Now therefore, the mayor and council of the city of Roswell, Georgia, pursuant to their authority, do hereby amend Section 13.7, Historic Review of the Unified Development Code by creating a new Section 13.7.16, Undue Hardship, the text of which is incorporated herein by reference, and if approved, this will be the first reading.
So this section is being added due to the state requirements. So last summer, when we had approval from the state, they've indicated that there was some language in our Unified Development Code that was missing that we needed to add. This is the first of the 3 text amendments that you will see, 2 tonight and 1 next month, that you will see that's being added. This language was in the prior zoning ordinance. We used it word for word, and the state has reviewed the language, so we do know that they have looked at it and have found this to be compliant. What this would allow, and basically the Historic Preservation Commission has been doing this practice already, it's just that the wording needs to be in the code. So this would allow them, if somebody had windows that they were changing out, and they couldn't, the windows were done in the 1920s, and they couldn't find those exact windows. This would allow them to find something similar, and it's basically for architectural standards and to keep the historical integrity and the character of the property and the house or the structure or whatever type of building they were looking at. But so this language just needs to be added into the code per the state requirements. Planning Commission recommended approval.
Thank you, Ms. Steibel. Any questions from council? Anyone in the public that would like to come forward and speak? Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Councilmember Palermo. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Wilsey. All those in favor, please raise your hands. And it passes unanimously.
Item number 8, approval of a text amendment to the Unified Development Code by creating Section 13.7.17 to establish criteria on how to expand the historic district boundaries and create a new district. This is the first reading.
Mr. Davidson.
Thank you. This is an ordinance to amend the Unified Development Code by creating Section 13.7.17 regarding the process for the expansion of the historic boundaries and designation of a new historic district. Now, therefore, the mayor and council of the city of Roswell, Georgia, pursuant to their authority, do hereby amend the Unified Development Code, Section 13.7.17, the text of which is incorporated herein by reference, and if approved, this will be the first reading.
Yes, this section 13.7.17 is also wording that is required by the state. So in the old code, we did have a section that related to the expansion of the boundaries. And in the 20 years I've been here, we've had one that went through the process to expand the boundaries of the historic district. However, this language is required by the state to be in the code. However, also when I sent it down for them to review it, they indicated that we also had to have language that indicated if somebody wanted to create a new district. So let's say an entire subdivision that met the historic requirements, say of all single-story ranch homes, and the entire subdivision wanted to become its own district that's not touching the current historic district. There has to be requirements to indicate how they could go through the process. So that's what they mean by expanding the district, but also possibly creating a district. So, and that would be only if they didn't touch the district. Now, the Planning Commission did recommend approval. They have so some of the requirements are how is it done, what is needed on the application. There's specific historic criteria that they would have to meet in order to go through. The Planning Commission wanted to add this language in Article G of the ordinance, as you can see here, but I zoomed it in here. They felt that they wanted to make sure that, let's say the property didn't touch the historic district and it was all zoned RS18, single family residential. They wanted to make sure that the zoning of the property would not change if a new district was created. Now, we do have that in there. They just wanted to make sure this, they basically wanted to make sure that's how it was stated. So they added this sentence to make sure that if somebody created a new district, that the properties would still remain zoned RS18 or RS30 or whatever the zoning may be, if that should ever come through the process.
Thank you, Ms. Steibel. Does council have any questions? Seeing no hands up, is there anyone in the public that would like to come forward and speak? Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Councilmember Palermo. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Wilsey. All those in favor, please raise your hands. And it passes unanimously.
Thank you, Mayor Henry. So I'm definitely glad those 5 were able to go by, I think, at a good speed. I do think we absolutely need to spend more time on this this final one within community development. So I'll call right now item number 9, approval of the initiation of a text amendment to the Unified Development Code, Section 4.3, building type standards, and Section 4.5, allowed uses regarding mixed use.
Yes, this was discussed at the work session to add requirements to the mixed-use zoning classifications. So what we've looked at is to require at least a minimum of 2 different types of building types in the mixed-use districts of NX and CX, neighborhood mixed use and commercial mixed use. So that would mean that we would not get all of one building type within that zoning classification, as we have had in the past, where some of our property that's been zoned NX and CX, where we might have had all townhomes. If we have something placed into the code that indicates you have to have at least 2 different building types, unless you have a mixed-use building type, which would then, if a mixed-use building type would be in there, you normally have commercial or office on the bottom and maybe residential on the top. So, but we were looking at if you got, say, townhomes and an office, that would meet the two minimum building types. So that would meet the requirement. So this is what we're looking to add in here for this section. And what we're looking for to add in the building type standards is to remove the townhouse building type from the commercial heavy zoning district altogether, which would mean that nobody could require or could build any townhomes in our CH zoning. And the CH zoning, for those who don't know, is on Alpharetta Highway, mainly from Mansell Road north to the line, to our line with the city of Alpharetta. So that would mean that no one could come through without going through a rezoning to change the zoning of that property to have townhomes. They would not be allowed by right. So the staff was looking at those two options as to change up the mixed-use zoning classification. Do you have any questions?
Does council have any questions? Yes, Councilmember Palermo.
Thank you, Mayor Henry. So I have a number of questions I do want to ask. I want to start out by expressing that I have two major concerns with this as written, that I do not feel it nearly goes far enough to actually address what I think we're witnessing as a real issue within the city and what's going on. So I want to address those two issues, and then I have some clarification questions to ask. So my two issues are, number one, in section 1 on packet page 42, it mentions NX and CX. It does not include DX. And that is something that I think is absolutely an oversight that needs to be addressed. But I want to get some clarification, Ms. Dybel. So as we think about what is a zoning class of DX, it's my understanding that the project called, quote, Canopy on Highway 9 south of the square, it's my understanding that's DX. Is that accurate?
That is correct.
And I believe that's 100% townhomes today. Is that
That is
right?
correct.
Okay. And Swallow at the Hollow and Greenwoods, those two separate projects, to my understanding, those are both DX as well, and those are both going to be 100% townhomes as well?
Most of them are townhomes. However, on the one side, they are keeping the residential building that was existing there, and I'm not sure if that's going to be used for single family or if they were going to use office there. But they are both zone DX, that's correct.
Okay, and today they were all able to be 100% residential, knowing that one of those we're not sure if will be office or residential. And so therefore, so first off, I think those are three examples that I think make it clear to me that when we talk about mixed use, DX needs to be included if we really do have the goal of mixed use. So that's item number one. Right off the bat, we need to add DX. It cannot just be NX and CX. Separately, still that would not go far enough. And specifically around the fact that let's look to the Canopy example. So that. As I drive by, that looks to me like a very large, what's going to be a large townhome development, a very large townhome development. And it's my understanding that if one small little building that's a different building type is built there, and keep in mind, actually, a clarification for those in the audience, I'm talking about historical projects because to show this is not just theory, that there is an actual impact. Keep in mind that any projects that have already been moving forward, tonight's discussion is irrelevant for. Nothing that this council decides to pass tonight or in 2 weeks or any other time is going to have an impact on all projects that are already moving forward. This is purely a discussion for future ones. But so let's pretend Canopy was not already occurring. There were not all those trees that were all cut down for that large townhome development. If tonight were to pass and this was the new law, they could still fill it with an ocean of townhomes as long as they had one little building that was something different. Is that accurate?
Well, let me explain one thing. This is an initiation.
Right.
So then it would be advertised and go to the Planning Commission and Council. Yes. So if once it gets through the Mayor and Council first and second reading and we had different changes on that, then yes, it would not be able to happen.
Well, it would not be able to happen with 100% townhomes.
100% townhomes.
But it would be able to happen as long as it was just a small building that had a different
Correct.
use. And that's where comes my concern. And so I'm sorry for being repetitive for anybody that had seen my my Mike for Roswell Facebook page, but I made a post about this, and I think it's very relevant for discussion. So Placemakers at placemakers.com has a definition of mixed use that I think is interesting. It's three-dimensional, pedestrian-oriented places that layer compatible land uses, public amenities, and utilities together at various scales and intensities. This variety of uses allows for people to live, work, play, and shop in one place, which then becomes a destination for people from other neighborhoods. This is what I think is a great definition of mixed use, and I think it's one that we should strive for. With our zoning code, we are absolutely not striving for that. We are doing the exact opposite. We have a zoning code that's making it very easy and therefore encouraging just these heavy in residential. Whether it ends up being, even though the 100% for these would go away, there's still, I'll give some recent examples. If you look to the Blacksmith on Canton Street, that's 4 large townhomes and really over just a small ice cream building. It's 92% residential. Recently on Old Alabama, there was a mixed-use zoning, 96% residential because it had multifamily buildings, townhomes, and one single commercial building expected to be a restaurant. These do not meet my definition of mixed use, nor do they meet placemakers. And with that, I actually want to bring up within the UDC, I want to bring up actually the definition around CX, commercial mixed use. So in our actual code for the definition of CX, it says here, CX is intended to provide for a variety of residential, retail, service, and commercial uses. While CX is primarily a commercial/retail district, the inclusion of residential and employment activity is strongly encouraged in order to promote live, work, and mixed-use opportunities. I think that's a fantastic definition. I think that's one that makes sense, that is in our code, and that's one that we have, the way we have our code set up, it's not allowing for that, it's not encouraging that. And another example I'll bring up is, Ms. Dybel, the townhome developments going on Mansell in between Crossville and Highway 9. To my understanding, those are CX?
That is correct.
Excellent, thank you. So what we have there is we have CX, which I believe they're being built as 100% townhome. With this, if this passes, developments like that, CX right there, for example, they would no longer be able to be 100% townhome, but all they would have to do is have a single little building to be something different, and they'd be allowed to still have their ocean of townhome. That is not what I think is effective for our city. So now I want to say what I see as as my second part of it. The first one is DX needs to be added to the mixed use zoning types, but then also what I believe we need to do is we absolutely need to have it be conditional use when less than 25% is commercial. So in other words, if over 75% of the square feet are residential, then absolutely should be something that's coming to council. There's community involvement. The community gets a chance to see what's going on, have a voice, and this mayor and council will ultimately have a vote. Because what we have occurring is you have these developments, it's never coming to city council, there's never being a neighborhood meeting, planning commission is never weighing in, it's just happening. So therefore, what I propose is we make it conditional use for when it is so heavy residential. And by doing that, it's not eliminating it. There's many different properties within the city, and perhaps some of them, a higher residential weighting could make sense. But at the same time, that should not be the permitted norm. That should be something that is a conditional use, and that's what I'd like to discuss here. So, Mayor Henry, I've shared all my points. What I'd be curious to hear from this council is if there's anyone that does feel just having having just a single little building on a large property full of an ocean of townhomes is what this council wants to see going forward. Because again, I think although technically the blacksmith on Canton Street would meet this new definition, I don't think that's the right definition for mixed use. Just as on Old Alabama, the multifamily buildings and the townhomes, I don't think that was true mixed use with only a single building. So I asked this council if I'd be curious, Mayor, to hear if anyone in this council agrees or if this council is comfortable with having that really that loophole for just continuing with the higher density without council involvement.
Councilmember Wilsey.
Yes, thank you, Michael, and thank you, Jackie. I just have a question for you, and I think it's more about the spirit of the mixed-use zones that are designated on the UDC. They're designated as the zone or the district itself is mixed use, correct? So that if you had, say, a parcel, say the canopy, a developer could come and ask for a townhome within that mixed use. You're looking at the district as a whole, not parcel by parcel as mixed use, correct?
Yes. However, everybody brings things in, and technically, in a sense, it is a whole district.
Right.
But we also get things in by parcel because there's other things that are already developed next door. So as we do look at it as a whole district, and you do have a mix in the entire district, right. But it is when it's submitted, we look at what's around it. But if something's allowed by right, which townhomes are, then it's looked at that parcel level.
Right. I guess what I'm just trying to understand, or just to clarify, is that just because it's in that district doesn't mean that they have to come and ask for that mixed use designation.
If it's zone DX, then no, they don't have to come in and ask for the mixed use designation because it does allow the different types of uses in the code currently.
Right, right. And if I'm not mistaken, I think that's really what happened with the development at Old Alabama. Originally they were in that district, but they came in and they asked for residential only. And because of desire by the community and recommendations by staff, as I understand it, they agreed to put in some restaurant commercial buildings to give it a mix. And, I think that in that case, the market kind of dictated how much that they felt like would be successful in that location. So, I think it's just really hard to kind of bucket list say, this is a percentage, because every lot, every parcel, every size, location throughout the city is very different.
That is correct. And you are correct on the Old Alabama.
Councilmember Tizer.
Thank you, Mayor Henry. I just want to make a couple of comments and just, I think, a couple of things that Councilmember Wilsey and Councilmember Palermo have said. First of all, zoning code doesn't encourage people to build things. The marketplace encourages people to build things. So in the case of a couple of those examples that were given, if people weren't buying townhomes, people wouldn't build townhomes. It just would not make business sense. Second thing that I wanted to say, I'm concerned about a percentage, but for a different reason. I'm looking at the inverse of what Councilmember Palermo is talking about. And if we use the development on Old Alabama Road as the example, that was a zoning change. And so they could have come in and asked, and I believe they may have initially asked for just residential. And as Councilmember Wilsey said, the neighborhood asked for there to be some mixed uses, a restaurant. I think there's going to be a bike or canoe shop or something down on the other end of it. If we were to put a percentage in, then they couldn't add that small amount, and they would have come in for just residential. And so the unintended consequence of trying to put in a percentage could yield just townhome developments only, and they wouldn't have that small amount of restaurant or whatever that some communities, some neighborhoods might want to have. And so, I enjoy having ice cream at the ice cream shop at the blacksmith building also. And so, whether it's the inverse that I'm concerned about, is that all we'll get is townhomes if we don't allow a smaller percentage to sometimes be built. Those would be my comments and concerns.
Additional comments, questions from council? Councilmember Palermo.
Thank you, Mayor Henry. I want to address a couple different points. So the last concern that was just addressed, that if we have a minimum commercial requirement, then we're going to get just residential, and that's actually inaccurate. There was not the ability to build that because it was using the old Alabama example. There was the need to request to go to residential, and this council had the ability to approve or deny. Ironically, that's still using the old Alabama example. That's a project I was opposed to because I didn't hear residents saying they want a mixed use. I heard them saying they wanted mixed use. And again, yes, without a doubt, it is a mixed use with that minimal amount of commercial, but that's not true mixed use. But ultimately, I think that's still a good example here because at least the community had the ability to weigh in. This council had the ability to weigh in. The majority of this council decided that it was worth approving. And that's just what I want to make sure is happening with more properties. Because my whole issue is when there's not the request, that it's just permitted as a right, so they never have to come to this council. And that's what I think we really need to address. And then also actually, interesting of, I thought Councilmember Wilsey had some great points that I definitely agree and want to highlight because it's actually some of her points are the exact reason I feel so strongly about this. Is there's the vision that you have an area, and an area is meeting that mixed use. It's not necessarily property by property, and I think that's actually a great point and a great vision and something I'd love to see. The problem is when we have things permitted as rights, there's not the ability for this council or even for staff to weigh in what is nearby. Instead, staff just looks at it and says, what is permitted here? And if they see right off the bat it is permitted to build an ocean of townhomes and just put one small little building up that's a different use, then staff is going to be required to just really accept it. So my whole thing is I just want the opportunity for when it is the heavy residential to come to this council and request a conditional use. And I'm sure there could absolutely be some that make a lot of sense, and this council would certainly grant. But it's something the public deserves to have a voice on, and it's something this mayor and council should have the opportunity to have a voice on, because or else we're not going to get and accomplish the vision that I think we share. And the last thing, my final point right here, is Councilmember Tizer had brought up the absolutely accurate point that the market is what encourages what's going to be built. That is absolutely the case, and I think it's very clear to see residential absolutely is very market driven, is very profitable, and something that we see a lot of developers moving forward with. The problem is we overweight ourselves in residential because the item that is so market driven becomes a free-for-all when it's permitted, and then what we end up getting is not getting really the other uses, the mixed uses that we really need to see to have really a balanced city. So I just want to address that as well. Thank you.
Councilmember Grower.
Question for staff first. Does all multifamily have to come to us if it's by right or?
No, all multifamily condos and apartments are conditional use across the board in every zoning district.
Okay.
Townhomes in NX, our neighborhood mixed use district, are a conditional use.
Okay.
So they have to come to council. Other than that, no.
Okay. All right, thank you for that. My opinion on this is that I've struggled with the definition of mixed use and thought through this a lot. I do think it's important for us to define it. I think that there's still a lot of uncertainty here in terms of how to define it. I don't know that there's something that this council could agree to, at least to initiate yet. I'm interested to hear from the public if there's anyone, but I do think some definition is important. Whether that's a percentage or not, I think we just still have work to do on figuring that out. And the question is, do we pass and move something forward and work through it through initiation, or do we take a step back and try to figure that out before we initiate it? But that's kind of my take on it right now.
Yes, Councilmember Wilsey.
I remember one of their big discussion points in committee was the fact that we have a lot of activities going on to gather community input and to develop a strategic plan for the city. We have the Historic District Master Plan, the strategic plan, and the comp plan coming up. So I think, one of the discussion points from staff was that since we have all this input coming in, maybe we can use that to help define the mixed-use areas a little bit better and where they want them. So, I think we have those opportunities coming up.
Yes, the comprehensive plan will be started at the fall of this year, but it won't be adopted until October of 2021. But yes, we were looking at the comprehensive plan as to really drill down and create and hopefully get something in our comp plan with a mixed-use policy instead of standard at that point in time.
Thanks, Jackie.
Councilmember Palermo.
Thank you, Mayor Henry. So this is something where I do feel it's very urgent, and the reason it's urgent is because if all a developer has to do is put an application in, as long as they've met all the requirements within the application, and that's done prior to any law change, then any law that we do change, it's not going to affect them. In which case, we can see more and more of our mixed-use zonings turning into just heavy residential. So based on the comments I heard from Councilmember Wilsey and Councilmember Grower, I'd be curious if anyone on this council would be willing to support a moratorium on any developments that are in NX, CX, or DX that have greater than 75%. Because I think if that's done, then what we do is we know that we're getting anything that is being developed is having a true mixed use, and it's also giving more time to then ensure we do really go through and see what we feel the right number is. Alpharetta uses 25%. I think it's a number that makes sense. I think it's something that's been successful. I'm ready to support 25% tonight, but again, I think a moratorium would solve the issue of it being urgent, and at the same time give more time for that discussion.
Mr. Davidson, a moratorium by and large is about 90 days with the option of an extension?
Yes, provided the city's working on the solution to the emergency, then the standard approved time by the courts has been about 90 days. That can be extended if this council is working on the solution, though.
Thank you, Mr. Davidson. Additional questions? Yes, Councilmember Tizer.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm a little bit confused between something that Councilmember Palermo said and the answer to Councilmember Grower's question. And it goes to the emergency nature, as Mr. Davidson just said. Did I hear you say that all townhomes require council approval? In which situations then do they not?
The townhomes are conditional use for council approval only in the NX, the neighborhood mixed use zoning district. In all our other zoning districts, they're allowed by right. The multifamily, the apartments and condominiums are a conditional use in every zoning district and require council approval.
So we're specifically only talking about townhomes in these examples. Is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
Councilmember Zapata.
Thank you, Mayor. So, Mayor, if Councilmember Palermo is kind enough to read again the definition of mixed use, because everything starts on the definition. What we understand by the definition, what we believe on the definition of mixed use, and I think everything starts from there. So if we believe in the definition that Councilmember Palermo just read, then obviously percentage is smart, is proper, and is realistic. And if we don't believe on the definition of Councilmember Palermo, then I would like to hear any other definition of mixed use from this mayor and council, because for me it was very clear what Councilmember Palermo read on his version of the definition. So if he's kind enough to read again the definition, and we can focus on the definition of mixed use, I think it will be helpful for the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Zapata. Councilmember Judy.
So on January 30th, Councilmember Palermo was not at committee when we went through this. It did pass unanimously 6-0 to move to initiation as written. I know that during the previous times we were speaking about this, we had lots of input from staff talking about how different places, actually most places, didn't have a percentage, and how Alpharetta's percentage was one way because of the way Alpharetta was built and the way Alpharetta is. So just throwing a random number up on the screen and saying 25%, or I will absolutely not support a moratorium. You know, at the end of the day, we need to take this back to committee and speak about it and figure out what we need as Roswell, not Alpharetta, not any other city, and do it right. Because this came 6-0 to initiation here, and we shouldn't be going through and trying to figure this out at the dais. When it comes to initiation, it should be almost ready for prime time, and we're not there yet.
Let me just add a few comments. My major concern is that we do nothing. And so when I wanted to move this forward to council, it was to get us at least a little bit further down the road. I cannot support doing nothing for the next couple of years, and I wish that you all would consider either moving this forward as is, getting us a little bit further down the road, rather than just scuttling the whole initiative until we have a lot of plans done. And we can always, let me just say this, when we do our strategic plan, our historic district master plan, our bike and ped plan, all of those things, we have the opportunity to change code. So making a change now to make it a little bit better, to me, is an important thing than to just avoiding it altogether. So I would support moving this forward as it is. Councilmember Judy.
I would support moving this forward as is as well. I just, you know, getting up here and changing what we have right here on the dais is you know, and throwing numbers here is not okay for me.
Well, and let me also say that we do have opportunities between now and the first reading and the second reading to discuss other opportunities and gain consensus on those. So that's the other reason why I just don't want to scuttle this right now. Councilmember Wilsey, did you have a question?
No, I was just saying, I would also support moving it forward. I think we have a lot of, empty commercial and underutilized commercial buildings, and I think saying the word moratorium really sends the wrong word to the market. I think we have opportunity to, develop and get the right mix that we want depending on where the location is. So, again, I would be in favor of moving it forward as is and continuing our conversation.
Thank you. Additional comments from council? Is there anyone in the public that would like to come forward? Yes, ma'am.
I'm Janet Russell. This will be the softest you ever hear me speak. I live in Roswell. First of all, I want to correct someone. Having a moratorium is doing something. Having a moratorium is an action. It isn't doing nothing. Just FYI, Woodstock has a moratorium going on right now because everything is going nuts over there. What I see is, and I haven't read everything you have, but if the word gets out that we're going to consider in the future things, as I understand it, anything that's approved between now and when you make a decision, we have no control over. It's already a done deal. That's what you've all just said. So we've got all these plans coming together to create a community and you're not looking at them. It's like trying to drive across country without looking at the map. You have to look at the whole picture. And I get to look at Canopy every day, and it's really special. And we begged you not to allow that to happen. And when I saw them knock down a 200-year-old tree between when I went into town and came back, I was horrified. And the bulldozers, and that project's been going on for 2 years. And I worried about the runoff into the creek. It's not just what we look at, it's the things we don't see that are impacting this community. Stormwater management, runoff to our creeks, flooding of our streets. It's not just multifamily or apartments. It's the big picture. And I don't think this city council is looking at the big picture. And that's why you step back, you know, that whole breathe thing. That's what a moratorium is. It's telling you to take a deep breath until we get all of these plans that we have probably paid $250,000 for. The city is famous. You know, I love living here. But this city, next month I'll be here 46 years. No, 47. The point is this. This city spends millions and millions of dollars over the years on plans that then go to a drawer, which may explain the condition of our downtown and other areas of this town. I'm all over Metro Atlanta, and I am stunned at what is happening or not happening in our little city. And don't tell me that there aren't people in this town that can exert influence, either monetarily or generationally or whatever, because we're seeing it happening all over town where terrible things are happening and not for the benefit of our environment or our general public. So I would urge you to do a moratorium because it is an action word. It's not saying, hey, let's do nothing. It is saying we're taking action right now until we hear the big picture. And that will show that you are wise. There's a saying in Africa, wise is the village where old men plant trees under which they know they will never enjoy the shade. Let's be wise for a change. Please, let's be wise. I'm getting tired of all this slipshod favoritism crap that's being built in this town. Horrible.
Thank you, Ms. Russell. I would like to clarify something. It was not my intention to say that a moratorium was doing nothing. My personal belief is moratoriums are very important in zoning. There are reasons why our sister cities use them. There are reasons why we've used them in the past. And I personally do not think moratorium is a dirty word. And I personally, if I had a chance to vote on it, would support it. However, if I was a betting woman, I would suggest to you that there is no support on this council for a moratorium. So I am simply trying to save something moving forward. Is there anyone else that would like to come forward in the public? Yes, ma'am, please come forward.
Hi, I'm Sally McKenzie. I live at 47 Goulding Place in Roswell. And just a couple of things I'd like to say. First of all, the market definitely may drive what developers try to develop, but the zoning code, the local enforceable law and promise to the residents exists to make sure that development conforms to vision and supports quality of life rather than detracts from it. So I would rather not leave what's driving the market. I would not rather have that be the deciding factor in how we develop as a city. I would prefer that that the vision supported by the residents be one of the main driving factors. Not allowing residents to contribute and to have input by creating such laws such as this kind of supports that, supports the market driving who we are and who we're going to be, rather than us driving who we are and who we're going to be. And I also want to add and kind of piggyback on the placemakers description of sense of place. The Urban Land Institute characterizes mixed use as 3 or more significant revenue-producing uses, fostering integration, density, compatibility of uses, and creating a walkable community with uninterrupted pedestrian connections. I know that all mixed-use developments can't have several different uses with significant revenue income streams, because some might be on smaller parcels. But the point of mixed use is that they are varied, significant contributing income streams, not pretty much one. And so to pass something such as this that just talks about building type without talking about use is really, in my opinion, pointless. This does nothing. This does nothing to support the spirit and intent of mixed use. So if this goes forward, I just would want it to go forward with some stipulations. This is a waste of space in the UDC as far as I'm concerned. And as far as a moratorium goes, a moratorium provides the opportunity for you, the city, and everybody involved to put focused attention on an important issue. And right now we are just piecemealing how we develop. We are piecemealing, we're fixing, we're patching, we're duct taping our code. And it affects all of Roswell, as we're seeing on Mansell, Old Alabama. It's particularly damaging to the HD. But this piecemeal approach, it's too little, too late. And I think we're trying to act like we're the experts, and we're not. I'm strongly in support of a moratorium, and also I also support bringing in some help, because we're not experts on planning a city. So we should look to other cities like Woodstock and Alpharetta, who are relying on experts to help them come up with the specifics regarding where they want to be and what they want to be in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to come forward and speak? Seeing no other hands up, I'll bring it back to council. Councilmember Tizer.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to agree with something that I think Councilmember Judy said on this initiation. I think it's an as-is, up or down vote. I'm not in favor of trying to create something different here at the dais. If there's something different that happens during initiation, that's fine. If you want to take it off the table and do it and then bring it back, that's fine also. I don't think we should be making changes to this particular initiation here. So I think I'm agreeing with both the mayor and Councilman Judy with what we should vote on tonight.
Let me clarify something that I said, which is, to me, it is perfectly appropriate to work on a document between initiation and the second reading. I don't think it's in our best interest to fly by the seat of our pants up here, but I think it's perfectly acceptable. Council gets together with staff over the next couple of months when this is going to be first reading, second reading. If there is consensus about moving forward with another aspect to this, I fully support that. Yes, Councilmember Grower.
I guess I'd like to ask Mr. Davidson first the legalities regarding requiring townhomes in CX and DX to come to us for a temporarily. So we would just, as opposed to them being allowed by right currently, could we impose that, for a period of time, CX and DX townhomes come to council for review?
No, not a moratorium. Just basically maintains the status quo. That's all it's there for. It doesn't change the ordinance. What you're talking about is going to be requiring them to come to you. That's going to take an ordinance change. Okay. So if that's what you want to do, you'll have to go through the process to do that.
Thank you.
Councilmember Palermo.
Thank you, Mayor Henry. So I've heard two of the council members, and their position was very clear. And actually, I guess technically three. But I actually have a question for Mr. Grower, if he's willing to answer it. So, based on the last question that he asked, which I thought was a fantastic question, I'm wondering if he would support a temporary moratorium on CX and DX zonings that have greater than 75% residential square footage.
Mr. Davidson, could we craft that?
That could be crafted.
Thank you. Additional comments from council? Councilmember Zapata. Councilmember Grower.
The answer to that is no. I wanted to see if there's a way for us to review those. I think that would be a fair approach. I'm not willing to create a moratorium that hasn't been discussed until we walked up here tonight. I'm sorry.
Councilmember Zapata.
Thank you, Mayor. So, well, for me, it seems like until we don't agree on a definition of mixed-use zoning, the rest is just, what we have now without percentage, for me, seems to be a theoretical concept. Yes, 1% one concept and 99% another concept. Yeah, it is. Theoretically, it is a mixed use. In theory, nobody can agree mathematically that it's a mixed use because it's not the same element. So, but if we take in consideration and we think about, the practical and useful for the existing community, then 99% versus 1% is not practical, it's not realistic, it's not truly a mixed use. So a mixed use without a percentage, I think that doesn't make sense. Might as well don't call it mixed use, just do whatever you want. So I think that the basic discussion here is the definition. Until we don't agree on the definition of mixed use, we can keep talking until 2021 about mixed use. So, and like I said, Councilmember Palermo came with an excellent, from my perspective, definition of mixed use from the practical and realistic point of view. If you discuss theoretically concept, then maybe it doesn't make sense his definition. So all depends if this mayor and council wants to focus on theoretical concept or practical and useful for the existing community. And then, back to the market dictate versus vision supported by the community. This is the other big discussion. We want just to, whatever land on the plate is what it is, or we have to carry on a vision of the existing community, the 95,000 people living today in Roswell. So those are, I think they're critical points to discuss and think about, and truly think about inside and come with the definition. I said that I agree with this definition. Obviously, Councilmember Palermo agreed with this definition because he wrote it, but I didn't hear from the rest of mayor and council the agreement with the definition that he just read. And again, I think also we'll make it more clear and transparent if we have a set percentage, whatever it is, whatever this mayor and council decide to be a percentage, it is. But I think it's fair for everybody and every developer moving forward. It's a clear way to understand what they can do, what they cannot do with the mixed-use zoning. So I don't support this as it is because it's just a theoretical concept. Doesn't resolve really the problem here, what we have here. I understand we move it from committee meeting, and this is the process. You move things that you want to discuss in front, on a regular mayor and council meeting, you move items. Doesn't mean that you have to carry on what was said for some council members at the committee meeting. And again, things can change from here to first or second reading. That is true too. So we have to understand that everything can change from committee discussion all the way to the second and final reading vote. So this is just to clarify the process. So I think that the discussion should be on the definition. Until then, everything is rhetoric, everything is feeling, everything is no sense for me. So I think we should discuss the definition.
Councilmember Judy.
Again, I agree with you. Everything's politics unless we're going to decide what we're going to do here on a definition and what this looks like. I don't read Mike Palermo's Facebook page, so I wouldn't have known what his definition was. So until I got up here and he read a definition, I didn't know that. So I am willing, as the mayor said, to move this forward, and between now and then, if his definition makes sense and we can come to an agreement, then I will be willing to support that in this motion or this ordinance here. But I mean, we can sit up here and talk around in circles all we want. So either I'm going to move it, we're going to move it forward, or we're not going to move it forward as is, and we can work on it between now and then. And that's simple as that. We can talk for days.
Yes, Councilmember Grower.
Yeah, I think we got to do something. I support moving it forward and hoping that we can arrive at a definition that there's consensus around. I think there's danger in doing nothing at this point, given we've all kind of struggled with this. I'm kind of disappointed that we've had this much discussion up here, but almost no discussion in committee. And I take some of the responsibility for that as well. But I think we've got the time to move it forward, so let's do that and see if we can arrive at something.
Councilmember Wilsey.
Yes, just one quick point. I mean, I think the vision of the community, I think we all want a thriving, wonderful, happy place to live. But I think, we also have to there is some balance of residential that's necessary to support either increased commercial or the commercial that's here. So I think that's something that we need to think about when we're looking at this definition. I know we've had experts who have, weighed in on that, and I'm sure that our ComDev department can help us with that. So I do see this as being an ongoing conversation, and hopefully we can come to a good definition.
Additional comments from council? Okay. Councilmember Zapata.
So, supporting this moving forward doesn't mean that support this wording. So this has to be clear for the audience and for everybody that supporting this move forward doesn't mean that so nobody, people can really support for one reason, just to move it forward and have the discussion, and other people might support it because they totally agree with the wording. So in my case, if the motion is to move this forward, my position will be only to come with a stronger wording and more practical and useful definition of mixed-use zoning. No, I don't support this wording as it is at all. And I want to make clear also to Councilmember Palermo when he makes the motion, the intention that if it's as it is, and I may support to move forward, but no with this wording.
Thank you, Councilmember Zapata. Additional comments from council? Seeing no hands up, do we have a motion?
Motion to initiate as written.
Motion to initiate by Councilmember Palermo.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Judy. All those in favor, please raise your hands. And it's Zapata, Grower, Wilsey, Palermo, and Judy in favor. All those opposed? Councilmember Tizer. And the next item on the agenda that I'm sure that we'll all have a rousing debate about is Environmental and Public Works. Councilmember Matt Judy.
Come on, Mayor. These are exciting things. Here we go. Right, Dan? Here we go. Item number 10, approval of a text amendment to the City of Roswell Code of Ordinances, Chapter 24, Utilities and Services, to revise the section, Conservation Measures Relating to Lawn and Landscape Irrigation, Article 24.5.22, Landscape Irrigation System Requirements. This is the second reading. Mr. Skowski.
Mr. Davidson.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you. This is an ordinance to amend Article 24.5.22, Conservation Measures Relating to Lawn and Landscaping Irrigation of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Roswell. Now therefore, the Mayor and Council of the City of Roswell, pursuant to their authority, do hereby adopt the following amendment. Chapter 24, Utilities and Services, Article 24.5.22, Conservation Measures Relating to Lawn and Landscape Irrigation of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Roswell, Georgia, is hereby amended by deleting Section 24.5.22 in its entirety and adding a new Article 24.5.22 to read as follows, text of which is incorporated herein by reference, and if approved, this will be the second reading.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I will be brief in summarizing this, but this is our second read. And this basically is to implement new water conservation requirements on large landscapes, and that specifically does not cover single-family homes. It does cover common areas over 1 acre. And the primary reasons behind this are to comply with the new Metro North Georgia Water Planning District model ordinance requirements. Our compliance with those requirements helps us when it comes to qualifying for Georgia Environmental Financing Authority loans and loan programs, as well as consideration of any permit modifications that we may have in the future, which I can assure you we will have some requests for the state for modifications in the next couple of years. So that's the primary motivation. I'll be happy to answer any questions, and on the overhead is a summary of the revisions to the ordinances for the folks in the audience.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Councilmember.
Second.
All those in favor, please raise your hand. Passes unanimously.
Item number 11, approval building renovation project at the Solid Waste Division facility located 1810 Hembry Road, and approval of a budget amendment BA 350-15651-02-25-19 in the amount of $41,519 from the Solid Waste Operating Fund to the Capital Projects Fund. Mr. Skowski.
So this item is basically primarily for the budget adjustment to make improvements to the Hembry sanitation facilities. That building was built over 20 years ago and really hasn't had much upkeep in terms of paint or refurbishment since. This will allow us to do a few things internally in terms of office space to accommodate some changes and make better use of that space, some closet space, lockers, flooring and carpet. The entire proposal for the bids was put together with the assistance of Building Ops, and we appreciate their help. This money will be coming, in terms of the budget adjustment, from extra funds that we had because our CART program came in slightly under budget. So that's the source of the funds.
Does council, excuse me, have any questions? Seeing no hands up, is there anyone in the public that would like to speak? Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve item number 11.
Motion to approve by Councilmember Judy. Do we have a second? A second by Councilmember Wilsey. All those in favor, please raise your hands, and it passes unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Skowski.
All right. Item number 12, approval of a resolution to adopt the City of Roswell Stormwater Utility Master Plan. Mr. Skowski.
So this evening, I'm happy to report that we've completed an update of our stormwater utility planning efforts, and there's a number of reasons for doing that. The stormwater utility was initially, planning began in 2005, and we implemented the stormwater utility fee in 2011. It's been 7 years since then, 8 years. We have a new division manager, and it's really time to refresh that plan and really summarize that for the benefit of all the new folks who are here. I'm one of them who wasn't here when the utility was created. Dave Morgan, who's on my left, was also here. He's our support services division manager. He and Danelle Murray, as well as a number of staff throughout the city, worked most of this year to put this together. So I'm going to just provide a very quick overview of that. And Dave, would you just hold up your new toy to the left, the prop, that's our stormwater utility master plan. It was quite a bit to put together, and it ties together our permit requirements as well as the operation of the utility. Summarizes our history, existing conditions, and I'm going to go through a couple of slides real quickly just for the benefit of the folks in the audience. This is an overview of what our stormwater utility does, protect public safety and our streams, and manage the infrastructure that we have throughout the city. That is accomplished with a number of staff and 11 full-time and 14 and a half if you count the part-time contributions such as myself and Dave. We do it through a lot of different techniques, and our main objective here is environmental protection. That was really the driver for the stormwater regulations that govern our utility. And we have a number of organizations that help us motivate us to comply with those regulations, and these are some of those organizations, and we work very hard to achieve environmental compliance with all of their requirements. Some of the main risks and challenges to the utility today remain aging infrastructure, and this gives just a few statistics about why that's an issue. Corrugated metal pipe, CMP, is one of the primary building materials that was used about 25 years ago, and it has a lifespan of about 25 years. So we see a lot of that needs repair and replacement. And that's what the stormwater utility funds allow us to do, among other compliance-related activities. There are also new regulations that we have to comply with. We expand our infrastructure with each new development and each major road. And of course, there's always inflation. I'm going to summarize the recommendations very quickly, just a couple of slides. Managing our capital program is really the theme that I want to highlight on this slide, as well as the one in the top right corner as you're looking at it, maintaining a little reserve fund so that we can respond if we have emergency situations in the infrastructure. Those projects are getting more expensive for us as utility ages and the pipes get larger as our city grows. We've budgeted about 2 major projects to be absorbable with a reserve fund of about $500,000. That's a ballpark, but we think it is a prudent thing to do so that we can respond in times like this where we have a lot of runoff or we have issues that surface and need to be addressed quickly. This slide really is highlighting green infrastructure, which has been one of the themes in our permit over the last several years. And we have a new draft permit that will continue to have those requirements emphasized as we work through our new permit cycle. That permit is draft and being commented on now by staff as well as others across the metro area. It'll go into effect in this June or July. And finally, just overall management of our finances. And the key point here is I've been in this business for over 30 years, and for 20 of them, I've been advocating extremely aggressively for having rates for enterprise funds and utilities that are tied to inflation. So at least there's a recognition that costs do go up over time. This is the first time in those 20 years I've had a chance to bring one to you or to any elected official that's been at the right time, where an inflation-based adjustment now is all that's needed to keep the fund solvent moving forward. And so we appreciate the help with finance in determining what it'll take to make that happen. And it's a 2.5% rate increase, which is what Harpreet spoke of earlier and will be incorporated in your budget. Nothing that's being prepared here or included in the master plan implies any commitments of additional funds. That would all be handled through the budget process or through bringing any individual items to you all, to this elected body. And with that, we've done a plan. We'd love to see it adopted through this resolution, and we'll begin working on everything that we can afford to do tomorrow.
Thank you, Mr. Skowski. Excuse me. Does council have any questions? Seeing no hands up, is there anyone in the public that would like to come forward and speak? Do we have a motion?
Yes, kudos to Public Works staff. I know it's been a long road to get this done, and y'all did a great job. So motion to approve item number 12.
Second.
Motion to approve by Councilmember Judy, second by Councilmember Zapata. All those in favor, please raise your hands. And it passes unanimously.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda, and for those of you that are new to this process, or are old to our process, I should say, we now have a section of the agenda which is our city administrator's report. So I am going to go ahead and call on Mr. Palmer to read the next item, please.
Thanks, Mayor. So we're on item number 13 under City Administrator's Report, approval of a resolution in opposition to House Bill 302, preemption of local building design standards. Recently, there are two bills, companion bills working their way through the state, which basically, if approved, would remove the authority from the city to regulate design standards over single and multifamily housing. So this resolution I'm about to read is this council resolving to oppose those two bills. Whereas House Bill 302 would prohibit local governments from regulating building design elements in single or double family dwellings, which could negatively impact economic development efforts and harm competitiveness, and whereas appropriate local design standards and land use policies create a diverse, stable, profitable, and sustainable residential development landscape, and whereas House Bill 302 is a bill that would undermine self-determination of citizens to establish community standards as illustrated by the following. Municipal and county officials are elected in part to make decisions about the look and feel of their communities, which fosters economic development, preserves the character of communities, and municipalities and counties use design standards to ensure that the property values of surrounding property owners remain protected from incompatible development. And House Bill 302 would severely erode the ability of all 538 Georgia cities and 159 counties to address unique and community-specific quality of life issues. Whereas county and municipal governments use building design standards to protect property values, attract high-quality builders, and block incompatible development, and whereas building design standards assure residents and business owners that their investments will be protected and that others who come behind them will be equally committed to quality. And whereas local governments spend a large amount of resources studying, surveying, crafting, and defining their vision and development strategies and design standards are an integral part of those endeavors to attract residents, businesses, and the much coveted trained workforce. And whereas the development and redevelopment efforts should reflect the community and its vision while simultaneously creating a sense of place. And whereas county and municipal government officials are elected to make decisions about the look and feel of their communities, and House Bill 302 would transfer that power from duly elected local leaders to outside groups with little to no stake in the future success of Georgia's municipalities, including real estate developers and home builders. And whereas building design standards neither discourage nor favor affordable housing, nor prevent the availability of certain housing types, as supporters of House Bill 302 purport. And whereas local governments should have the ability to provide more affordable housing options without sacrificing their unique character or threatening economic growth. And whereas although historic districts are protected in House Bill 302, which indicates an understanding that standards do in fact make sense, downtown overlays or similar special zoning districts are not. And whereas local governments should be empowered to enforce building design standards to make today's thriving downtown tomorrow's historic district. And whereas by limiting the ability of local governments to enforce building design standards in single or double family dwellings, House Bill 302 would negatively impact quality of life issues, including economic growth and the safety and welfare of Georgia citizens. Now, there be it resolved by the Mayor and Council of the City of Roswell, Georgia, that this governing body voices its opposition to House Bill 302, preemption of local building design standards. Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Palmer. I would like to hand over the mic to Mr. Davidson, and if you would please address the definition of home rule And then also how the definition of the zoning in this bill would affect us.
Thank you, Mayor. So basically what home rule means is that with limited exceptions, the state has granted this city council the ability to protect the health, safety, and welfare of its citizens as it deems appropriate, as long as it's allowed under state law. Currently, what this law would do, it will take away the city's ability, the city's citizens' ability to regulate the design standards, but it also limits the definition of zoning in the state code. Under their new definition of zoning, the council will only be able to address in zoning district land use, height, width, area, and size of buildings and other structures, the percentage of lots that may be occupied, the size of the yards, courts, or other open spaces, the density of the population, the location and use of building structures and land, lot coverage, lot width, lot area, spacing between buildings, buffer zones, parking requirements, and landscaping requirements. This takes away a lot of the protections that we have in this city as far as our design review board. Just when you look at our zoning code itself, which is our UDC now. This is basically the state is intending to give a one-size-fits-all, where instead of the community deciding what the houses and the development should look like in this city, it's going to be developers just coming in and building with the cheapest material they can use, as long as it meets the building codes. Your house could be next door to an empty lot, and you could have somebody come put siding up in your house. All the other houses could be brick. There's nothing this city could do to stop that if this bill passes. I don't know if you want me to keep going, but.
Well, thank you. We'll see if we have any questions. Councilmember Judy.
No, I wanted to thank City Administrator Palmer for bringing this forward. I watched the committee today on this, and not much of it makes sense, and it would absolutely strip our power as a city and as elected officials. So I'm in support of this and appreciate you bringing it forward.
Councilmember Palermo.
Thank you, Mayor Henry. Absolutely. I want to give credit to Mr. Palmer. I saw it was literally probably a few minutes after the GMA, the Georgia Municipal Association, they sent out this update to elected officials. Literally, it seemed like within minutes, Mr. Palmer was reaching out to us, seeing if there was interest to be on board, and I definitely commend that, and really encourage all of staff to continue to really make sure this council is aware of what's going on. I know that Mr. Skowski brought forward an important one last year. It was a very similar thing to this, and appreciate him doing it, and definitely appreciate the city advocating for Roswell residents really at the Gold Dome. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Palermo. Yes, Councilmember Tyser.
Thank you, Mayor Henry. I have not had a chance to read House Bill 302, but if it's as described, I would agree. It's an incredibly awful concept. I was wondering, two questions though. Who is sponsoring this bill in the House? And the second question is there a companion bill in the Senate?
Give us a second here.
Thank you.
And while they're looking this up, I would encourage all of us to get in touch with our local officials at the state level. I was a little disturbed by the vote.
I have the House bill here, and it says Representative Smith, Powell, Burns, and McCall, and Fry, and then it says and others.
I've got the Senate version of this bill introduced by Senator John Wilkinson. Additional signers of this bill are Senator Jeff Mullis, Steve Gooch, Butch Miller, Ellis Black, Freddie Powell Sims, Chuck Payne, and Lee Anderson.
Thank you. Councilmember Zapata.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I think that this is an absolutely important matter for local control. So I appreciate this bringing forward, and in this matter advocate for local control. It's a perfect example because we elected officials are, to make decision of how it's going to look and feel this city today and in the future. So, we cannot give away this right of cities and counties. So I totally support this resolution.
Thank you. And just so everyone knows, I will send a letter along with the resolution to not only our North Fulton delegation, but the rest of the folks at the Capitol. I think this is something that is extremely important for us to protect not only our city and our citizens and our business owners, but you all know, and it's been very evident of late, that if you want to get anything done, you can get it done at the local level because we're falling on deaf ears at the state and federal levels. So I think it's very important that we protect our powers, and I thank you all for your positive comments on this. Do I have a motion to approve this? Yes.
To approve.
Councilmember Wilsey moves to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Palermo. All those in favor, please raise your hands. And it passes unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Palmer. The last item on the agenda is the city attorney's report.
Thank you, Mayor. All I have is a recommendation for closure to discuss personnel litigation and real estate.
Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Councilmember Judy, second by Councilmember Wilsey. All those in favor, please raise your hands. And it passes unanimously. We are adjourned.